Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Logo Therapy Logo Redo. And today's show, we're going to be jumping right into SkillShare. We're going to be talking about logos that you love, or actually logos that you love to hate. So this is the redesign. And today we have joining us Alissa Metsnik, and she's originally from Estonia, but she's currently residing in Ireland. If you want to check out some of her work, go to alissa.works. Alissa.works. I wanted to say .com after that, but it's just Alissa.works. And this is some of her work. It's actually pretty diverse considering most of our logo therapists have a portfolio mostly just of logos. So I see typography, I see a lot of graphic design, and a bit of lettering. But the logo we're taking on today, and I didn't even realize this, Mark, Skillshare has a new logo. I'm not used to seeing this one, so I'm curious as to where we go with this. But
Hmm.
before I do that, I have to ask Alissa, why? Why are you taking on the Skillshare logo?
So, hi guys, and thank you so much
Hello.
for having me on the show, Chris.
Happy to
I
have
said
you.
it to you before we went live, but that felt like something I wanted to say again because it's really fun to be here. So I chose Skillshare because I was really annoyed when I saw the rebrand,
Mm-hmm.
and mainly because for almost a year until that rebrand actually happened, I kept waiting for them to launch a rebrand because it felt like it is such for them it felt like it's time to start evolving, and
Mm-hmm.
they weren't doing that. So Skillshare is one of my favorite places, and I was really waiting for them to launch something really amazing and spectacular, but they didn't. um, their brand is pretty up to date. Obviously, they've rebranded literally in 2020, but it lacks something for me. It feels
Mm-hmm.
like they literally went and Googled logo or identity trends of 2020, 2019 and did exactly that. They went very expected route, and actually I feel like their old identity was really loved by design community,
Mm-hmm.
even though it was kind of like old and outdated. It had a
Yeah.
concept to it. People were used to seeing colors, and people were in general really used to seeing it, and they just crossed it over completely and launched something completely new that doesn't seem to have too much meaning or concept behind it. So I'm just going to run through this really quickly. So what they went for is this kind of like mixed lowercase, mixed uppercase logo typeface. And as their system basis, they are using this scribble that they say represents creative journey, and that creative journey isn't linear, and it is kind of like a complicated pathway. So that is the rationale behind what they're doing. And they launched a new strategy, which I feel like is maybe a right strategy for them, because they used to position themselves as like a platform where anyone can learn from anyone. But since then, a lot of different platforms that provide education online launched. And a lot of their courses are focused on creativity anyway. So I feel like they just sort of caught up with their audience, and decided to double down on creative audience, and put a positioning forward that says explore your creativity. And that is kind of like how their brand guidelines play out.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you what do you think before I go further?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first, I want to thank everybody that's tuning in live. Some people have been saying they've been waiting this for days. So thank you for your patience. We should have a virtual line, Mark, where we can see them queue up. So thanks
Yes.
for hanging in there with us. I'm also excited to see where Alyssa takes this design. Now, the original logo I never loved. It's thin, it feels a little dated with the rounded corners and the two hands coming together. I don't think that's the image we want to put out there in the world of creatives as hands. Because that's like a derogatory term. Like you're just hands, like you're just somebody to move the mouse, a mouse jockey. So I don't like that at all. So when I saw this logo, I thought, hey, it's kind of more my cup of tea. A bold sans serif typeface, working on a tighter configuration so it stacks nicely, so it scales and reduces well. And the black and green, I like. It's fresh. I don't know what the scribble really means, anyways, but I like that they're going in this bolder, fresher direction. But as people say on the chat, every time you do a rebrand, you risk alienating your longtime diehard loyal fans. I understand that's the case, but progress has to happen. So that's my initial thoughts.
Yeah, and to an extent, I definitely agree with that. I feel like the identity that they launched is a step forward for sure. But I personally would have loved to see an identity that plays more on the one that they had previously and evolves together with their audience rather than takes it out completely and launches something entirely new.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to explore today. So it was time to evolve for them. I feel like they lost a bit of a brand recognition that they have built up and potentially alienated some of the audience. I don't have those facts, so I can't say that. I wasn't happy, and I'm their audience, so it's an audience of one. I'm designing for myself today.
That's totally okay. And you're the boss, so you get to do what you want. I have to ask you this question. The typeface that you're using for your presentation is really bold, chunky typeface. What typeface is that?
It's Euclid Square.
Euclid Square. Okay,
Yes.
I like it. It has some interesting properties to it.
It came from a really interesting type foundry called Swiss Typefaces.
All right.
Everyone should check them out. They are really good.
There we go. That's an unsponsored plug right there, guys. We give it away for free.
So before going, and I'll try to go through this part really quickly so we can get into the process, but it has some of the important information that I use to make my decisions, because I don't actually really like designing logos, and I try to get to the system part as soon as I can. And being very intentional with what I'm doing really helps me to get to that as quickly as possible. And the first step that I usually do is that I look at their competition, like what market landscape do they exist in? Not necessarily to see if there's any gaps, although that too, but to see what's their positioning and what do they have to offer, kind of like in addition to those different platforms. And Masterclass, for example, is a platform that is very much about it's about luxury, it's about to a certain extent empowerment, but they very much survive on the reputation of the people, and it's highly curated and a very kind of it's a bit like an exclusive members club almost.
Right.
Domestika is an interesting one. It is becoming really popular recently. They are also focused on creatives, but the number one difference between them and Skillshare, and this is what gave me some of the ideas later on, is that you can pay per course, and the courses are usually quite cheap, and Skillshare is a subscription. Just to quickly browse through these, there are a lot of platforms like Coursera, for example, that are coming across more as a professional and a skill-based training. So they're trying to teach you for a profession or to help you gain your skills. They're very much focused on achievement. That's what Skillshare doesn't do. We've got Creative Live, which has a good mixture between creative courses, mainly a lot of photography, because Chase Jarvis, who founded the Creative Life, is a photographer or used to be a photographer himself. And I feel like a lot of their audience is probably Chase Jarvis fan, because he has a really strong personal brand. Teachable. Not gonna stop on that very much, but Skillshare is a platform that is actually the only one of all of these platforms that is that where anyone can become a teacher. So you can launch your own Skillshare course, and they help you to bring audience to watch your course. Whether something like Teachable, you can launch your course, but you have to have your own audience. Future Learn is one of the kind of platforms where you can learn university level courses, but again, it's really focused on achieving some sort of certificate or degree. It's not as much of a fun platform, but what I like about them is that from their identity, you can clearly see that they are promoting the education of the future. So like you can have a first glance at this and you already know what they're about. And just a few other ones which I feel like don't have a lot to do with Skillshare, because Skillshare comparing to them is definitely a lot more fun platform to be on. But lynda.com, LinkedIn Learning, has a lot of creative courses. Khan Academy is more focused on kids education, and they are making education accessible for everyone. Career upskill focused Udacity is another one of those, and I couldn't find too much difference between them and Coursera, but again, they do not come across as fun platforms to be on. You just sort of go there and learn what you need to and go out. So what makes Skillshare unique is focus on creativity, and you can launch your own course there alongside big names like Chip Kidd, Paula Scher, Ellen Lupton, and your course will be right among them. I think this is a pretty unique value proposition. Anyone can be a teacher, and it is a subscription. And I think this is a really important bit, because a subscription means that you have to keep coming back there. You don't learn how to design a logo, you don't learn how to design identity. There has to be a reason for you to keep coming back. And shall I stop it here in case you have anything to add, Chris?
No. I think it's kind of interesting. All the competitors you brought up, you might have forgotten one company, but that's okay. My ego is not hurt. Please continue.
That is completely not because I did not think of you.
But we could say thank you for doing our competitor research for us.
Yeah, thank you. Every day there seems to be one more future course or university that's popping up. So that's now the third future university that's not us. Just to let you guys know.
Future is the best one, guys. All go to the Future, especially if you're a designer. Don't go to Skillshare.
It's all good. No, Skillshare is great. We have a subscription.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually don't. I think I need to renew it. So I've kind of slightly tweaked their brand message because that was helping me to design more. It's not a proper full-on strategy, so it could be good or bad, but that was something that was helping me make it a bit more tangible, because the way what they say about themselves currently, which is explore your creativity, I think I cannot visualize it. I don't understand how to visualize it. That seems like a really bland sentence to me. So instead, I went for a place where inspiration finds you, and you can find inspiration through doing, or you can find inspiration through teaching, because when you teach, you actually learn a lot as well. Mm-hmm. And another step in my process, which I usually do pretty quickly and mindlessly, is identifying kind of like a key theme, so that it helps me to design a logo, so that when I'm starting to do it, I already know what I need to do. And the key themes that I wanted to bring up is lifelong learning, industries crossover and collaboration, and inspiration. So lifelong learning, again, because it's a subscription, industries crossover and collaboration, because I think there's something interesting in trying to encourage, like, let's say you have a designer that's part of a Skillshare community. They're using your subscription. To keep that designer there, I feel like it would be really interesting to try to encourage them to try music, and maybe that helps them find an inspiration. Because most people get stuck in like their one area that they're in, and to make that subscription worthwhile, if the platform was encouraging you to try like a lot of different things, that could be really fun. And inspiration. And then I usually pull together kind of like a really quick mood board that I'm not necessarily using as such, but just to get some sort of visual representation of what we're talking about. So a lot of infinity symbols on this one, industry crossover and collaboration, like maybe there's, some sort of mixed media approach or a split screen, something happening.
I see where this is going.
Yeah.
It's very clever. I see where this is going. I don't mean to interrupt. Keep going. I'm just providing some comments from the peanut gallery.
And another way at this would be kind of like intertwined shapes or
These are great
something
references that you put
crossing
together,
over.
by the way. Very nice.
Yes, especially the Carol Martens, one of my favorite printmakers, designers ever. If someone's not heard of him, please check him out. He's dedicated 80 years of his life on figuring out how to make shapes work in an interesting way.
There's another unsponsored plug right there, Mark. We just dropped a
There you
40th
go.
unsponsored plug right there. I do want to make one comment real quick. If you guys are watching this, you're probably getting the feeling that I'm getting. Alyssa's got a very sophisticated taste. The way that she curates and lays things out, her typography is really, really sharp. And just as a graphic designer myself, I really appreciate this. I just wanted to comment there.
Oh, thank you, Chris. It means a lot coming from you. And inspiration, again, could we bring split screen into talking about inspiration when something comes from ordinary to something extraordinary? Or could we represent flow as inspiration or wave? Many would be familiar with the concept of inspiration. When you're inspired, you're feeling like you're in the flow. And the reason I do this before I start designing anything is so that when I'm designing, let's say if I start with a logo, it's so that when I'm designing that logo, I can start thinking of a system in my head, like how is it going to start playing out in the future? And now we're finally into the fun part. Let's look at the design process.
Very exciting.
So, as I said in the beginning, I wanted to see how we can build on the previous identity SkillShare had without deleting it completely and starting fresh. And some of the most interesting features of what they had were kind of like the two colors coming together, because that to me speaks about collaboration and also to their name as well, literally sharing skills. But also there were some interesting things happening in the logo, which go back to some key themes that I started outlining in the beginning. So this was their logo.
Yep.
You could read a letter S inside that shape. And there's also something interesting about SkillShare. So there's a double S in there. So that also already gives an idea of what the logo could start becoming. And I am immediately jumping to like double S monogram in my head. There's two of these curves meeting together, which again speaks to me to collaboration and skills coming together, whatever you want to call it. And something that speaks to lifelong learning to me as well. You could sort of, with a bit of a stretch, where you could start seeing infinity symbol inside that logo as like a closing down shapes.
Yes, you get a bunch of designers together, they stare at a logo, and they become Rorschach tests, and people see what they want to see. I for sure see the S. Of course, there's two hands in there, and I'll go with you for now. Yeah, I can sort of see an infinity thing there.
Okay. So these are all the things I wanted to consider when I started doing sketches. And if that's hopefully going to play, there you go. So we're now in my sketching process, and I've literally just, I'm doing this on Procreate, and I've literally just started tracing the logo and seeing where it takes me.
I like that you've gone in and deconstructed the original logo, and I think you've done it better than most, because people will talk about it and then they'll move on. But I really like how you're examining it and taking it apart and trying to preserve some of the heritage and original identity. So that's really cool to see. So what are you working in here? Is this Illustrator?
Procreate.
Oh, Procreate.
So I draw on my iPad.
Oh, all right.
There's actually, I usually used to start drawing on paper, but since I got an iPad to do lettering on, I actually realized that it's really useful for logo design process, because your you're actually a bit, it frees you up to delete certain bits and start looking into negative space, and it's a bit easier to do that than on paper, so your process can actually go a lot faster. But paper is just as good.
But these are nice and sharp. Your sketching skills are really tight.
I like all the different variations too. A lot of exploration that you've done here.
Yeah,
I can see in some of these they feel a little retro, like 70s or 80s, and then some a little bit more modern as you're working through this. Okay.
So what I was really trying to do, as you and you'll probably, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but you can probably see it in some of them. Like I wanted to, so I wanted to have the feeling of the two shapes coming together as original logo does. I wanted to see if I can make it work with the two original kind of like, I don't know how to call it, like half circle outline shapes. Or I wanted to see if I can, I think actually that's all I was doing. I was playing with some negative space around here, but that didn't seem to be
yeah, I think
out.
Before you're describing two interlocking semicircles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, kind of. It definitely started with so that was like, I think it was this one. Well, oh, actually, we'll see it now.
Or like two macaronis.
Or two macaronis. So from here, I've selected this logo. I was like, woo, fantastic, great, I found it. I can imagine how this is going to start all coming together.
Yes.
And then I found out that this is exactly the same as a Shazam logo.
Oh,
and that was a really devastating day.
Oh, no, this happens all the time. When you're dealing with pure geometry and simple shapes, it's bound to conflict with something that you find.
Yes, but it was even, if it was something really small, perhaps it would be possible to overlook it or tweak it slightly. But for something as big as Shazam, there was no way I could make it work.
Yeah.
So I was in a bit of a pickle. So I returned back to Sketches and started seeing what else interesting was in there that I didn't find before. And that shape started standing out. So
can you pause here? Can you pause here for a second? The ones that I see on screen, the one that speaks to me the most is number 3. If we're looking at the top row, 3 over from the left side, I really like that. It's really bold, and there's something really cool about that. The proportions feel pretty good.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I didn't think that when I was designing, but actually, now that you say it, I might return into it and explore. Maybe there's something else in there.
Yeah, that's what you're saying to me right now. Like, shut up, Chris. I got this under control. I really need your opinion right now. But the other one that stands out to me is number 7, which is on the second row, 3 and from the left, just underneath my first favorite. But I think I'm just looking for the right proportion between these things. And one is taller, and I don't know why, but the taller one feels maybe a little bit more elegant and not so squat and not so squarish. So maybe it feels faster in its movement and more dynamic. But that's just me speaking design nonsense. But I think those are 2 very good options to look at.
I thought we're all here to speak about design nonsense.
But I have to call it out when I do it, because people on the internet later are going to watch like, there he goes spewing that design speak. Yeah, it's true. It's just interpretation, and it's subjective, and I have an opinion as you do, and I'm not saying mine is right or yours is wrong. I'm just sharing my opinion. Okay, please continue. Okay.
So similarly to you, I felt like proportions are kind of wrong. So I started I started refining it a little bit, and that was fairly quick. It still feels wrong, but I decided that I'm going to start resolving that in Illustrator. Is this?
One of the reasons why I had preferred the top a 3 in versus number 7 was because I'm not looking at the negative shape. When you have something like this, you really have to take into consideration what's the negative shape. And when I saw it last time, it kind of looked like a toy duck. You know what I'm talking about, like a rubber ducky when you take a bath?
Mm-hmm. It kind of did.
It did, a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're going to see where Alissa takes this. Now, what are you
doing?
Oh my
God, I'm afraid nowhere well. I think the duck stays.
It's you're going to find a meaning for the duck. That's like a surprise.
It represents life or something.
Yeah. You know, it's like
in
duck,
my
duck,
mind,
goose.
it was. Sorry, go on, Chris.
No, it was going to be a dumb. I was trying to help you find a reason why ducks are important. Because when life throws a punch at you, you got to duck, and that's why you got to go.
Oh gosh, dad jokes are on.
Dad joke. I'm trying. Like in the presentation, this is what I would do, guys. Really, I would sit there and like, sometimes you got to zag, man. You got to duck.
That's very true. Very true.
You got to tell a story that's repeatable, and so if you tell the right story, the clients fall in love with it. If you tell the wrong story, they go, "Oh, dad joke." So I notice here, these are not perfect circles. These are more elliptical, right? Or is it a perfect circle?
No, it's definitely not. I was just trying to match the curves. I feel like when you start designing with like, I don't know, maybe it's just me who's like not really good at this, but I cannot design with like perfect shapes or anything. I'm not. This is probably a first time I've ever built a grid for a logo.
Oh, interesting then.
But back to the duck conversation, I thought it was an S inside.
What's that?
To me, when I was designing it, it looked like an S inside.
Oh, it looks like an S.
What I wanted to do is like,
Yeah.
So that's where I stopped.
Okay.
And that's how I've created it. And I went back to their original colors and tweaked them slightly so they look a bit more uplifted and nicer combined. And now we can look at the way I did the word mark and how I was looking at type pairings.
And one thing I just wanted to comment on is I like how you showed us that you hit that roadblock where you saw that the logo looked like Shazam. You're like, oh, okay, well, we got to switch gears here. Now that you found that out, you go ahead and went through more explorations until you found what you liked.
Yeah, it was. I was pretty much in love with this logo, so it was really hard to realize that Shazam owns it.
That happens all the time. Now, what typeface are you using? The same one?
Yes, it is called Euclid Square, so I use the same for representation as I used it here. And I started... What this video doesn't show is that before in a process, I usually lay out like a couple of typefaces before I even start designing a logo and see which one I like, just so I'm not completely stuck when I'm designing. And once I like something, I can sort of run with it and then change it if I need to. And what... I'm trying to remember, what am I doing here? Oh yeah, so I started seeing how like this type locks up with the logo. One thing I did to it, and I'll repeat that step a bit later on, is I tweaked the curve, not the curve, I tweaked the slant of an R and the width of letters L so that it kind of like stacks up a bit nicer. I think I'll do it again soon.
There's a comment in here that says you're a really good designer, and I 100% agree.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've not been doing it for too long, so...
Shh, don't tell anybody that.
Yeah.
You just say thank you and walk away.
So, actually, that was an interesting part. I'm going to go back quickly.
Yeah, so you put an S to fill it in, but at a different shade or different color.
What I was trying to do, I wonder if I can stop it somewhat. No, that was not stop. Oh my God, I'm ruining everything. So, oh my God, I need to go back. I'm thinking, how can I show it, but I can't. So I'm just gonna. Basically, when I was looking at this, when I made a word mark with Euclid Square, I realized that it really annoys me that the angle of the S is different. The angle of the logo, of an S in the logo, is different to the word mark because it has a lot more kind of like a closed-in S. And then it's a perfect 40-degree angle inside the logo. So that felt kind of like that it doesn't create too much harmony to me. And what I started doing, you'll see that in a bit, is I took a Futura S because that's how it's built. And I started seeing if there's any way I can create a word mark with Futura, but that didn't felt like it works to me because it felt kind of quite heavy comparing to the logo. So then I went back to the original Euclid Square, but now I am making sure that that symbol is following Futura kind of like slants or guides or curves. And then what I'm going to do later on is redesign letter S in Euclid Square so that it's built a little bit more like Futura so that they kind of align.
Oh, I see.
That was a
Things
very
that designers
complicated
do, things that
explanation.
drive designers crazy, is matching letter forms and angles, right? Very nice.
I have a slide later on which shows all of the like a progression. So hopefully you guys can tell me if it was worth my time because that took a long time. So this is what I'm trying to figure out here. And let me know if you want me to rewind any of these parts, Chris.
No, so far so good. So after exploring the S and redrawing it, what are you doing now?
I feel like literally for the whole duration of this video, I'm going to be doing that because I don't remember too well, but I feel like I haven't redrawn S just yet.
Okay.
I'll jump a bit later on. Oh yeah, so here you can see me trying to fit Futura into that typeface so I can see how much of the weight I need to reduce.
So you're literally copying and pasting a Futura S in there.
Yeah.
Just to try it on for size.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. And then, well, obviously Futura is a lot bolder than this typeface. So what I started doing is matching the angles. And then, what am I doing here?
You're cutting off the edges to match the same angle, and then you're adjusting the letter form in that open counter so that it feels correct. Otherwise, it's flaring out at that angle, right?
Yes, exactly. And I've already said there that it's not working because the whole letter felt like it's tilting. So I thought I can do like a quick fix to Euclid Square and just make the same kind of like a cut in an S so that it follows the same angle. But it didn't work.
Yeah.
So now I'm fixing Futura S.
I was just saying, someone in the chat was saying that the letter S is one of the hardest letters to design in vector. Do you guys feel that's true?
It's true, man.
It looks like it.
It is true. There's all kinds of weird stuff you have to take into consideration. It's nasty to draw.
So now I imported, I'm going to stop it quickly. So what I did is that I've put Futura S into that already existing word mark. Then I exported, put it into my iPad, redrew it by hand slightly, so until it kind of felt right. And now you're seeing that sketch, which I'm gonna start vectorizing. So all I did is that I took kind of like a little bit width out of it.
Thanks, CZ Design, for the super chat. Appreciate it. I think that's Tristan, right?
I'm not familiar with the name.
We'll see.
CZ Design. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So are a lot of these decisions that you're making, Alissa, just kind of optical as you're pulling in the other Futuras?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I admire all you designers who come on the show and try to design and draw a symbol. They're not very easy to do. I've tried. So that's why I stick with type.
I've seen you design symbols on a show before, Chris.
And that's why I've stopped since then. They're just difficult, you know, to try to capture the essence and create something memorable and unique. Some of the ones that I admire, I look at them like, oh, it's perfect. I just one day, I might get there, but not today. Mark, you know.
So here I'm just creating.
Sorry, go ahead.
Here I'm just creating a lot of side-by-side comparisons to see what optically feels right to me. And I'm kind of like marking them as I go so I don't forget what changes I've done.
Mm. So Mark, I was thinking about something. I think you're doing this on purpose. Unless you wait for me to speak and then you start talking at the exact same time.
Great reflexes.
Okay. You go first.
No, it's your turn.
No, really, I insist.
I don't even remember what I was going to say anymore.
You remind me of someone that used to be on the show with us. I would start talking and they would just interrupt me and I would stop and I'm like, you have something to say? And they said, no, I don't remember. I'm like, well, thanks for interrupting my flow of thinking. Okay. So while you were watching you work here, I just wanted to fill in some of the dead air, which was, I've been looking around for a logo to take on, a logo that we all could participate. And there's a lot of candidates for ugly logos that need some help. So the first one I'm going to throw out there to everybody that's watching on the live stream, over 500 of you, is maybe the logo for Under Armour needs some help. Just me. Maybe the whole company needs help right now, but I'm just thinking that logo is but ugly. But ugly.
Do you guys feel the same way?
I feel it, man. Unless they've changed it, I get it. They want a cool X letter, so they do the U and the A, but they're both round and curvy, and it's just, I wouldn't want to wear that. It actually turns me off. And when your logo is that bad that I won't buy your products, you know it's bad. Here's another logo I think needs some work, and this might be controversial. The UFC, some organization that I love, and the story behind the UFC is they had a pretty butt ugly logo before, and they had a design competition. Really strange. And this is before they made it into the big times, right? So they had a design competition. I felt compelled to like try to enter, but I was thinking, this is degrading. They should just hire a professional design firm and do this versus having fan submitted art. And then they have the logo that they have today. I think it needs some help. The last logo I think needs a lot of help is a company I'm hoping that will sponsor a design competition for all of us so that there's something in it for you and for us, is Dr. Squatch, the soap company. They need all kinds of help. They have a good product. They need all kinds of help with packaging, website design, but check this out. They're still very successful despite not having good identity design. Those are some things for you to consider. I'm going to ask you all to think about some logos that you love to hate and go ahead and drop it in the comments below. Okay, back to you, Alissa. It is your show.
What's a Dr. Squash? I've not heard of it.
Dr. Squatch? Yeah, I'll share it with you
What?
later. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
brand of soap for men.
I just googled Under Armour and I really agree with you.
So you know what I'm talking about now, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Right. So I'm gonna jump ahead because this is just me trying to work out optically whether that S works. What have I done right? What have I done wrong? I'm not a type designer, so this wasn't an easy thing for me to do. Ideally, you know, if Skillshare hired me and I was doing this project for them, I would hire a type designer to do this part for me, but
Hmm.
I couldn't. Um,
So you're still obsessing over this letter S right now, or you were?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
My goodness.
a
How
whole
many
day.
hours of your life did that suck?
Um, that particular letter S,
Hmm.
uh, like maybe 6, but I
Oh
learned
my
a lot
gosh.
doing it.
Okay.
Sounds like an S load.
Oh,
I'll be
Jonah.
here all night. I'll be here all night, fellas.
Are you a 2 drink
Oh.
minimum, Jonah?
We are.
Yeah.
We're gonna need
Are
it.
you rounding the corners to your letters?
Yes, I rounded them slightly so that it feels a little bit friendlier.
Mm-hmm. All these subtle little tweaks.
And now I'm just seeing if this letter S works well in combination with others.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so this is literally what I've managed to do to it. I've kind of like redesigned, reconstructed the way that the letter S is built within this typeface so that it follows the same angles and curves. And here is the side-by-side comparison. So here's how on the left is how original typeface looked. Then in the middle is the modified type, like the tweaks that I said that I did to it, like I've modified the width of some letters.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the right is how the redesigned version looks.
Yeah. Okay. I'm standing really hard at my screen right now. Okay, I see it. I see it. I'm glad you
You
pointed
see
it
it?
out, though. I do. Mm-hmm. I want to
Good.
give
My
a quick.
time didn't go wasted.
Yeah, it was not wasted. I want to give a quick shout out to Nick's UI UX. Thank you very much for your support. Okay, so now what?
I
Oh
have.
my gosh, you didn't even prepare me for this. You just threw it on the screen. Introduce it first, will you? Okay, so this is the final logo.
Yes.
Nice.
Right. So you're using the original orange and turquoise, and you're also bringing back some of that connectivity, the letter S hidden in the counter or the duck, and ideas of infinity or a link or a chain between teacher and student becoming teacher, maybe. Okay.
Exactly.
Very nice. All right.
Very clean.
Yeah, very clean. Okay, so where else are we going with this?
So I started putting together some design elements. I felt like. Wait, can I have a look at my slides really quickly?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So let's cut to my ugly face then. Jonah.
Got you. Yep, I'm on there.
Yeah. Okay.
All
And
right.
back to you now.
Back to yes.
Yes. Okay, what's this all about?
So I started putting together some design elements just to guide me further on as I'm going through this process. And I felt like potentially some gradients, like variations of the primary color. Some gradients that are variation of the primary color will actually help them to bring a little bit of youthness and make them feel a little bit more modern, because these two colors, I think, can look a little bit heavy when they are together. So what I wanted to do is to kind of like lighten it up a little bit. And now I return back to my identity system inspiration that I had in mind from the very beginning when I was designing the logo. And actually, just to say, like, sometimes I start with the system first and design the logo after. And I really wanted to do it. I was really hoping that this is going to happen for this process, but it didn't make sense because already from the beginning, I kind of knew that I want to follow. I want something that follows the shapes of the symbol, which meant that I had to design symbol first. But sometimes I design a whole system and then I go back and get the logo done. So we're back to the inspiration. And I felt like some kind of like intertwining shapes, some like flowing shapes could be the way to bring this to life. And I started doing some sketches of what I have in my mind so that I don't spend too much time pursuing not the correct idea. And this is kind of like what I started drawing. So you can see those gradient colors slightly coming in. And what I wanted to do is to like create this flow shapes that are then taking you into the logo. And this is some examples of like how it might look like. Well, there's some sketches of how it would look like without, with like still same curves, but without having the logo in there. And then I've created a grid that would help me construct those flow shapes.
It's all coming together
watch
now.
So I think I'm gonna jump somewhere. So as I've constructed those shapes, I started seeing if there's anything more interesting I can do with the gradient, because when I was applying just a normal gradient to it, it looked really flat. And I wanted to have kind of like this feeling of the two colors coming and merging together. And this is literally just me playing around and exploring to see where it takes me.
Yeah, it looks like we're getting a lot of discussion here about gradients, and some people are saying that they're difficult to use. I know that in this situation, your research is showing that, you're showing that blend together, almost like a metaphorical meaning. Chris, Alyssa, you guys have any kind of pros and cons to using gradients?
Yes, use them very carefully because it could easily make your design cheese ball. Just letting you guys know. And if you pick the right colors, it can really make it sing and be very vibrant and pop. Pick the wrong colors, it's like, oh, somebody just learned how to use the gradient filter. So in this case here, with the orange and turquoise color, they're complementary on the color wheel. That means if you mix them, they get muddy and really nasty. As you can start to see here, when Alyssa's painting them together, you're going to see some really strange overlap in the colors. So I think her strategy to use a deeper burnt umber or kind of this reddish blood orange to define the orange arc is a nice choice there. I think with the turquoise blue, you probably want to do something similar, a deeper shade of blue or maybe a blue-green color to kind of accent that. When they overlap, it gets a little crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as I was going, I was using a lot of references because it was really difficult to get that balance right, especially like for that reason, as you very well described, Chris. And also on the use of gradient, I think it should be a careful use, because what I feel like sometimes happens is that it's kind of like get out of jail free card for a lot of designers, like, oh, I haven't designed something really well, so I'm gonna apply a gradient to it and make it pop or like look nicer.
It's like you have to have good bones in your design, otherwise you're throwing an ugly or a dress on top and the bones aren't there. It doesn't look right.
Are there any cases where you shouldn't use a gradient at all?
Yeah, when you have a low budget for printing, and you or perhaps when you have to deal with something that has to be very, very legible, then it's just probably better to use solid colors, or especially if like people are colorblind in those applications. I like imagine a stop sign having gradient red, orange, and yellow, and you see it, and you're like, well, sometimes I see stop, and sometimes I just see STO, right? That's why you need just contrast. Contrast is king in design. It seems like you're just exploring here, right? It's like
Yes, I had
you're kind of
absolutely no
letting it
idea what
speak
I
to
was
you.
doing.
Yeah. It's just like, I'll try this. No, that didn't work. I'll try that. Okay. I'll try this transfer mode.
It's all part of the process.
Sometimes when you play with them, actually some really interesting things that you wouldn't expect come out. So Photoshop, I think, is definitely my favorite program to design in mindlessly. Like if you have to be a bit more intentional if you're doing something in InDesign. Well, InDesign is layout, so obviously you have to be, but like Illustrator, for example, like I would not be able to design anything there with just playing around. Like I feel I need to be quite intentional with what I'm doing. But Photoshop, especially if you're working with color, is a really nice kind of like playground place, at least for me.
Now, there's a lot of questions in the chat about why these colors are not feeling it, but what you don't understand, if you go back to the beginning of this timeline or the video, you'll notice that the original colors for SkillShare are the same or similar turquoise and orange, right?
Yes.
That's so she's trying to go back into the history, and oftentimes as designers we feel compelled to just throw away everything that's come before because we want to put our own stamp on it, and that's not always appropriate. So I like that Alyssa's kind of staying in the pocket, if you will, of speaking to the past while pointing to the future, and that's where the blue and orange or the turquoise and orange come from.
Yeah, they are not very easy colors to make work together, though.
Let me rephrase in case somebody pulls a soundbite from this video. Let me rephrase. Concept is king. Contrast is queen. Okay, I'll just leave the mic here. This is why it's so hard to do these live streams without a live audience. You know what I mean? I got no love from Jonah or Mark.
Yikes.
I got nothing from you guys.
No, I'm leaving the sound bites for the edit later if we need it. I don't want to fill it.
We don't want to ruin it.
Yeah, thanks, Jonah. Thanks. It's like a Sprint commercial. You can hear the pin drop. It's tough. This crowd is very tough, you guys. You think this job is easy? This job's not easy at all.
What's going on?
I can imagine.
Jonah with the sound effects. Yes.
How many live streams do you do a day usually, Chris?
4. I'm just kidding. I do 1 if possible, the maximum. But sometimes I do podcasts. I do coaching calls, and then I do a live stream. Last week was particularly brutal on me, and the team wanted to see how much punishment I could take, and so I had multiple podcasts in a day, as well as multiple live streams in a day. So that one was rough. The whole weekend I spent like just on my back, like, oh, I can't even open my eyes right now.
Just trying to keep you on your feet.
Yeah, but you knocked me on my back.
So Alyssa, what's going on here? You're introducing different colors and then masking to see if they all kind of blend together.
Yeah, so it's all a combination of a lot of masking, a lot of different blend modes, mostly pin light blend mode because it kind of like pushes color around nicely, and kind of still staying with the same initial idea of adding additional color, like additional colors into the teal and orange. But sort of seeing if I can make all of them work at the same time. I love color.
Yes, you do. It's pretty wild, I have to admit right now. It's pretty wild. Yes. How do you know you're going to be done? I mean, it's just like you're just painting away.
At some point, I feel like I just know.
Okay.
It's not a helpful answer. I'm sorry.
No, it's like I know it when I see it. That's the answer you're giving us right now. Okay,
I'm
so
gonna,
for the sake of everybody here, we probably need to like jump forward to like when this starts to come together, maybe at
yeah,
a greater milestone. Okay, so
which
is
is
this the
now.
final thing here?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Let's see this.
So
Mm-hmm.
so I've stopped at this gradient, but I think something exciting can start happening if you sort of vary it a little bit.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, in
that's how
context
it
here, it
would
looks
come
much
together.
better. Yeah.
So I've also added a bit of copy in there to go back into the idea of a place where inspiration finds you. So when you show up, inspiration follows,
Mm-hmm.
which I think
That's
is a
nice.
really nice positive message for a learning platform to send, because learning can be really painful sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
it's nice to have a bit of encouragement.
Mm-hmm. I actually think learning is pretty painless. It's the doing part that's painful, right? We could sit here and listen. When you put it into action, it can actually be very painful, especially when you're learning something new. I love seeing it in context, like on a scale like this, on a big screen where I could see the keynote being delivered and somebody standing there and that's their slide, right? I think that's really cool.
Mhm.
As a standalone piece of art, it needs some type to ground it, and adding the logo underneath and this copy and the people, it really starts to come to life. Nicely done. I can see this animated too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think those shapes could be quite interesting if you start, because what they do is that they receive a lot of content from their creators, and
Mm-hmm.
having some sort of system or a shape that helps them to generate those graphics
Mm-hmm.
can be really helpful. And what if they released a billboard or some sort of advertising? You could start, I'm sure. If they were actually commissioning an ad campaign, it would look different. But there is something interesting in using the shapes of the logo and just driving a bit more brand recognition through that.
Mm-hmm. I like this crop in particular. I think seeing the shapes not fully formed, like a hint of the shape as the left bottom edge there, I think something like that is really cool. For my own taste, I think it would be much more successful if you used a little less color and just hinted at the shapes. Joan, is that you?
Mm-hmm.
Not me.
You calling somebody? It's like
No,
we're trying to have a show
that's
here, Jonah. Stop calling people. It's Alyssa's phone. Okay.
that's me.
Yeah. So I think just like if we were in design workshop together, I would say, yeah, I think you're onto something. I just would pull back some of the colors and use a little bit more restraint. And I think you're onto something really nice. I love the crops. I love seeing it in different proportions where it's squarish and then it's really, really horizontal. And it's starting to show like, oh, there's a lot of places you can take this.
Mm,
And there's a
yeah.
dimensionality to it that's coming through here, where it feels like things are undulating and coming forward in space and things are folding back, even though it's just strictly two-dimensional.
Good.
Okay.
Well, I can imagine a lot of places where this could go. Unfortunately, I stopped there.
Okay. That's fair. That's a lot of places you
Um,
already imagined for us.
but I will keep expanding this project, so I'll be dropping some stuff as I make it.
Okay, so let's keep this up on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Skillshare about a year ago underwent a rebrand, and the logo on the left, the black and green one, the lime green, is what they netted out at. And Alissa felt like, oh, and she's a fan, and she felt a little disappointed because it felt typical or just in keeping with what everybody else is doing, and it lost a lot of its history and roots. And so she wanted to bring that back. The interlocking hands, the infinity symbol. I say that with a little smile, and the turquoise and orange color palette, the mix and match. Thank you very much. The mix and match of those two coming together, right? So if you look at the colored version of the Skillshare logo, you'll see that they split the letter forms into blue and orange, or turquoise and orange, and that's where that comes from. Okay, let's go back to the previous slide. And I'm going to ask everybody, do you prefer the original? Type in 1 in the comments. Or do you like where Alyssa's taking it with the rebrand, refresh, but going back to the history? Put number 2 in the comments and we'll see where we net out. I know that's going to take a little time for us to tally the results and for you to actually hear this because of the audio delay. or the live stream delay. Let's see what they say. 1, original. 2, new.
We're already getting some results in here. Yeah, because we saw the original slide, but
Yes.
lots of people like the revised, the after, number 2.
Nice.
With a few, yeah, there's some ones mixed in, but the majority is,
The majority.
yeah.
The vast majority. And somebody gave you a dab emoji icon, so
One more time. One more
I gave it
time.
to you. What's that?
One more time.
No, it's too late. I gave it.
Oh, you
Jonah,
guys missed
if you're
it.
slow on the trigger. If you're slow on the trigger, Jonah, what can I say? Okay.
Yep,
Now,
lots
I
of twos.
would like to give you some of my critique and observations here. I think you did a wonderful job. I loved how you deconstructed the logo, and like I said, it's a big challenge to try and come up with a symbol that is pleasing, that has some meaning, but not so strong that it becomes only one thing. And it's critical when you're designing an icon for a company that is still growing and changing. Some of the observations here. I noticed the macaroni shapes that you did, the lower part of the S. There seems to be a little swelling in the bowl of the S, and it seems a little thicker there for some reason. It could just be because of the way I'm looking at my screen. And the top of the S, the orange macaroni, it looks a little heavy on the top side. So there's some things that are just throwing me off ever so slightly, Alissa. And I need to go and look at your vector file to be sure, but just optically, it looks like it's slightly crescent, and I'm not quite sure why. And then it seems to swell at the bottom of the S, the bowl. Okay. I would like to see a little bit more refinement there. I really like the extent in which you went in and started to modify the letter form so that there's some continuity, some visual compatibility or complementary lines and angles so that they seem to fit together. Most of the other letter forms are pretty generic, so that I think it was wise to focus on the S and tie those two together. And I also like that you brought the colors back. And that's it. Okay.
Even after you said that you like the green color?
No, I say I like that you brought the colors back. The turquoise and the orange, just pulling from history.
Oh,
Yeah.
Did I manage to change your mind?
Are you trying to put me on the spot?
A little bit.
Well, let me say it this way. I think there are two very handsome options here, and I think if I were SkillShare, I'd be very happy to choose either.
Ooh.
That's a good answer.
I'll try. Okay, very good. So I guess I think that's it for us, right, Mark? Do we have any other questions or comments that we need to read from the chats?
There was one question. So I know you mentioned some of those designers in the beginning, the ones that created those prints. Who were they again?
One was
somebody.
Carol Martens.
Carol Martens.
Carol
Okay.
Martens.
And what else?
Who else?
I think that's the only one
Was
she
there anyone?
mentioned,
That's the
right?
only one? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question for you though, in regards to the font that you use. I'm always on the search for like interesting fonts and like why people use them, and most often times they're terrible fonts, and they're not really well drawn. But I like this one, Euclid Square. So I looked it up on their site, and I'm trying to buy it, but there's a couple of steps I had to figure out because it won't show me the price. How much did that font cost you?
It is quite an expensive font. I used it for a client project, which they have bought for their company. And now, unless I use it for a commercial project,
Right.
sometimes I just use it for personal needs.
I got it. I got what you're saying. I'm just curious, like, do you remember how much the complete set, the different weights, costs?
I only have 3 weights of it,
Mhm,
and I think it was about £800 or more.
800 pounds?
Wow, we.
Yes.
Holy smokeroonies. All right. Okay, everybody just like emptied their shopping cart right now. Wow. Okay.
Wow, that's it.
Usually small typefoundries that are really good at crafting typefaces, their typefaces cost more because they just don't sell a whole lot. Right. So just let you guys know. Anyways, I just want to thank you for doing logo therapy, logo redo with us as one of our newest additions to the therapist, if you will. I appreciated your work, your effort, and your energy in putting this together. Very nice presentation, and I think you ended up with a very solid solution. So if you guys are curious, if you're curious, you can find out more about Alissa. She's Alissa Metsnik, and it's at alissa.works. And she's residing in Ireland, but she's originally from Estonia. And you can check out
In
her
London.
website. You're in London,
Yes.
not in Ireland.
No.
Okay, I don't know.
I wish I was in Ireland. It's very beautiful.
I thought that came in with your bio. Okay, whatever. She's in London. She's in London, guys. So it's at Alissa, or you go to her website, alissa.works. And if you're a client and you have needs of a skilled designer, I would highly encourage you to go check her out and to hire the people who do this work for us that we can enjoy and learn from. And that's it for me. On behalf of the rest of the team, Jonah and Mark, Alissa, thank you very much. I want to wish you guys have a great weekend. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. That's it for us, guys. I will see you next time, where you may see me dabbing or not. Who knows?
Dabbing Chris.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All
Good
right,
job,
Jonah, take
Alissa.
us out of here.
Bye, guys.